To back up a little bit, basically a few years ago, so between sort of startups that I had, I got really into options trading. Most people start out trading shares where you're buying and selling, right? It's all very basic. It's pretty simple, and it's basic to describe, and it's hard to do well, obviously, like Warren Buffett. But once you get through that phase of trading, generally you start looking at what are called derivative trading securities. Well, they're not securities, derivative trading kind of contracts. And there's a couple of different types. I was quite interested in options, and options are effectively like insurance contracts that you can buy and sell over shares. Now, I always describe it as insurance because it's a simple kind of an analogy. It's not exactly like that. Like, it's definitely not exactly like that. But that's a way to think about them in terms of like, if I buy an options contract, it basically gives me the right to something in the future if a certain thing happens. Kind of like if you buy insurance on your house and your house burns down, then you have a payout amount. That's effectively what an options contract is. And you can, unlike insurance, as an options trader, you can buy and sell. So I can buy these contracts and I can also sell these contracts. They're highly leveraged. They're very risky, and you shouldn't do it unless you put money in that you're willing to lose. And you should definitely not do it unless you have done a fair bit of research and paper trading before you do it live. And even when you do that and you think you're confident, you're still going to lose money. So it's definitely not for the faint of heart. But it's interesting and exciting, and it's very technical, which is why I liked it. So between startups, I tried to sort of develop a couple of different trading strategies and execute them. And then I did that for a while, made some money, lost some money, started a new startup, and I stopped doing it. But recently I've been talking to a friend of mine who is still trading options, and he was saying, well, is it possible to do options trading with agents? And that sounds like a pretty interesting engineering challenge. I have met a few people in different like dev communities who are either working in quant trading firms that are actually actively working on this, people in the LangChain community who are doing this. So one of the most prominent people, I think, is a guy out of New York who's building an Agentic AI hedge fund. And this is like a proof of concept, right? So this is his equivalent, but it's not options. So that's an example of one. But what I really wanted to do was just figure out if I could build an agentic version of what a lot of people have been using ChatGPT for over the years, which is like, they just start asking questions and then they try and get GPT to go out, get them the data and give them an answer like, what's oversold at the moment and has a really good call option spread, or the balance between, say, put options and call options at the money, which is just a fancy way of saying, is something going to go up or down? Does the market think something's going to go up or down? All of those things to basically use LLMs in a structured way to scrape through and get more data than basically any one human would be able to at once, and try and give individual traders an advantage that, say, quant firms have had for a very long time. Mm-hmm. So there's a whole bunch of these platforms out there. So the first step is I just basically wanted to see like what's out there. So I went to this cool website called mcpcentral.io to try and find MCP servers. And I found one called Polygon. So Polygon.io is a developer kind of finance API. And you can, as an individual, get access to different data sets. And typically they sell to trading apps, Robinhood, etc., to try and basically be the data provider for these kinds of apps. But these guys have an MCP server, which is what you can see here on the right-hand side, which is what I'm running. So they actually have an MCP server. You can just connect it up to, I've connected this one up to Claude, I believe. And you can you can just download the repo and you can give it a try. And then it shows you all of the different kind of like tools, calls you can get. And you can also embed it into your Claude desktop app, which is something I did. And the reason why I was doing this is often how I start with, or how I like to start with thinking about AI apps, is to basically just use these layers to then figure out what's possible, and also figure out if there's actually value in building anything, because often you can get 80% of the way there just by using these chat apps like Claude Code or ChatGPT. So here is the MCP server of Polygon here, and you can see all of these different tools that they've got. So, get, daily open close rates, list all the different trades for different people, like insider trades. That's a big, like, kind of like equities trade move. Bunch of this stuff. They've got crypto in there, all of these different things. Now, I'm just using the free version, so a bunch of this stuff is not available. But once you start paying, and it's about $80 a month, I believe, for the basic. you can start getting a lot more of this information. But there are these toolkits out there for developers to use. Another one is just called financial market data, I think is just the basic one. But I think this Polygon one is a bit better, and it's a bit better set up for AI, like application developers. From there, I basically just played with it for a while, and I was just like, all right, well, these are all the tools I can use. Tell me, all right, get me the inside trades for NVIDIA, for example, and see if it'll go out and get that. It might not based on my subscription rate, but yeah, it's processing all those tools. You can see it there. Can you see that? Should I zoom in a bit? Probably a bit better. We'll see what it comes back with. The next step to where I'm at with this is like, all right, it's definitely possible. Yeah, the current tools. So I just need to upgrade, but you can see the equivalent. Like it can call the tools and it can give you the response rates, and then you can get the data set and embed it. The next step that I went through was like, well, how could I visualize it? And then I used V0. So here's V0 to start like seeing, well, could I just generate like JS charts that are trader specific? Because this is non-trivial. Like if you've ever done any front end dev and you tried to do this in the past, like this stuff is not fun because trading charts are always very specific. So I literally just said, build me all of the options trade kind of profit and loss visualization charts into a UI that I can use. Like, how many was that? What am I up to? I'm only up to V9. So that's 9 prompts and I'm already here. Like this stuff is great. So I've got my base layer of the different charts, and then I can start using this to basically like options change things like this, that I can then start to use to try and hook into this Polygon kind of data set. And then my goal is to basically have a very simple chat interface that actually engages with these visualization environments to say, all right, well, go and get me a combo trade, multi-day combo trade on 0-day options across these different equities and this index, and visualize the projected P&L or the different trade scenarios. So for example, it might open these certain scenarios and then based on certain criteria, close and open other ones based on technical indicators. And I want all of that to just be embedded into some sort of agent. So yeah, it's a really fun area. It looks like it can work, but it's based on what I've seen in the market so far. So there are a couple out there. You can just Google around for them. They're not purely agentic in what you and I would call like an agentic application layer. They're like, if this, then that kind of if else conditional statements across like different technical indicators coming into like a logical flow. It's not like an agentic kind of decision tree in a pure sense. One of the ones that I really like is Option Alpha. These guys, they're an example. And then the other one to check out is Quant Connect, if anyone's interested in this. And these are sort of reference algorithmic trading platforms.
They're essentially providing data, right? Like they're, at least in this sense, like a data provider, essentially, right?
These guys hook into brokers and they're a data provider, yeah, but then they have the UI layer over the top. Plus they have like this bot automation toolkit, which isn't, as I said, like an agentic layer, but it's very, very technical. What they both have, which is really cool, which is I think what will be an exciting thing to see once all of these are purely agents, is that they have these strategy explorers that the communities contribute, and then you can fork or subscribe to a quant, like in this case, it's a Quant Connect kind of like investment strategy that you can then subscribe to, and it tells you what the holdings are and the returns are. So I can imagine like an optimized meta ETF that optimizes into the best agentic options and trading strategies that are just constantly being like iterated on and self-refined, that you could then like basically say, all right, just only weight my portfolio of like cash into the top 5 performing agentic trading strategies at any time in the top 100 kind of benchmark, and just balance out everything and close everything out as you go through those. Like that would be pretty amazing. Yeah. So that's been on my mind.
Well, Tom, seems like I'm calling it now. This is what's going to hook you into being obsessed with the MCP.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. Because as soon as I did that, I was like, now I know why Cameron's so obsessed. It's like, I need these and I need them to work. I don't need them everywhere. And it's just not there for me right now. So yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah, man. I know I talk about MCP constantly, and but I think you just have to get your hands on it and have a use case that makes sense to you, and it will all come together.
So this is the example. This is the example one that I got running this MCP. So I thought you'd be pretty proud of me getting this moving as Mr.
Hell
MCP.
yeah.
And it has a little pedantic.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I've never used Pedantic, but yeah, this little Pedantic kind of AI agent framework over the top. It's not really an agent framework like that's really hardcore, at least in this execution of it. So that's what's running here. But it's a very simple kind of terminal interface. Basically, they built it to just give you a sense of what's possible. So you can just fork it and get it running. Like it's really easy. Here's the instruction here at Polygon on the, yeah.
Have you seen the MCP UI thing? It's taken the internet by storm, at least in the MCP space.
This guy from Shopify.
Yeah, it's not developed by Shopify. In fact, I sent you the wrong link. Here, let me get you this one. This is their MCP UI. This is their actual website. The same guys who developed this also, I think it was Git MCP, which is very similar to the deep wiki that we were talking about earlier. It's like context understanding on your code base. But they built this out, and yeah, maybe we'll cover it here in the coming weeks. But Tom, as you were talking about building UI and stuff like that, this is the first thing that I thought of, because this is now getting a lot of attention.
Got it.
I mean, there's so many.
That's really cool. This is well, so it's like a UI toolkit that you can then expose into chat interfaces, right?
Exactly. So a lot of the MCP stuff, it happens in the background, and then Claude or whatever MCP client will sometimes, interpret that and can create visualizations, but that's kind of the Wild West. You could get anything out of that. This is, I don't know, more of a structured approach, or controllable maybe. I don't know. Again, haven't gone deep on this yet, but I definitely intend to. I think there are tons of use cases for this.
This reminds me, actually, have you seen like I believe it's the Vercel AI components. It's kind of like that library, AI elements. I was actually playing with this for something that I was trying to build recently, and it's from a developer, this guy. He's got some great GitHub repos on Shadcn UI components, and then they released this as basically their AI elements for Shadcn that you can then just hook into using their components as well. It's kind of like an equivalent, right? Where you can embed this in chat and then like generate UI elements, all the components here.
Yeah, there are a lot of interesting projects centered around that. I don't know if it's like dynamic UI creation, but
yeah, Copilot Kit's another one, right?
Yeah,
that one got a lot of attention, which I think is really cool. I've never built anything with it, but I spoke to some of the guys about it. Yeah, like these things, like reasoning output, and just like pre-built elements.
And then Magic UI 21 or something. It's kind of a weird name, but there was a really popular one couple recent times, at least.
Are these the guys that released that that new terminal, agent terminal? This is Magic UI. This is cool.
I haven't seen that. Could be.
This is one of the many things I'm trying to ignore on X. Yeah, this is cool. Oh, these are similar AI UI components. Nice one.